Welcome to Authentic Health Fridays on The Jason Wright Show. This segment empowers you to reclaim control over your well-being and live a life aligned with your body's natural design. I am thrilled to guide you through insightful conversations and practical advice, all geared towards helping you achieve the vibrant and balanced life you deserve. In this dynamic series, we have the privilege of tapping into the expertise of a true visionary in the field of health and wellness. Dr. Gus Vickery, the founder of Authentic Health, located in the scenic heart of Asheville, North Carolina, is more than just a renowned author and speaker. He's a beacon of wisdom in the world of precision medicine and integrated health. Each episode, Dr. Vickery will be your trusted companion on a journey to unlock the secrets of authentic health. Drawing from his extensive knowledge and expertise, he'll share invaluable tools, tips, and information to guide you in understanding your body's unique needs and embracing the principles of precision medicine. Here we are on another Authentic Health Friday, Dr. Gus, with new technology, taking a big risk here, but we're always trying to improve the Authentic Fridays, always in all ways. I've heard that somewhere. And so hopefully this will be really good. And that's good. So you're back from Fort Worth, spoke at a conference on, what was it? Stem cell regeneration?
I had two topics that we merged into one talk about optimizing body
Okay.
repair after injury or surgery. And one was bioregulatory peptides, which I know you like
Mhm.
to talk about. And the other was the whole stem cell system of body repair and how we can improve the health of our bone marrow and improve the function of our bone marrow using botanical agents to maximize stem cell availability in the body. It's really
Sometime
cool.
I want to do an episode on stem cells and what is happening. And I haven't talked about that in a long time. As a matter of fact, Clay Williams, who's a urologist who's been on the podcast a couple of times, he loves to talk stem cells. And um, I want to talk about that sometime with you. And we probably
Yeah, we'll do an
good.
episode on it. It's really cool. And there's and again for the average listener who might not think about, okay, I'm gonna go travel somewhere and pay $20,000 and get stem cells. A lot of them may actually benefit from that as opposed to a surgery or something. There's a very practical conversation around protecting your bone marrow and maintaining maximal stem cells in circulation that doesn't involve that type of price tag. And so that's what we should do. And that's what I was really talking about at the conference. In fact, it ties into this conversation today that we're going to be having about optimizing recovery of the body, recovery from stress of any sort. If I can, it's okay if I can't, but it just dawned on me. If I can share my screen, I'll show you a short 30-second video that it'll blow everybody's mind in terms of the power of
I would
stem
love to.
cells, if we
Let's see.
can. Yeah, see if we can share.
See and share mine.
I'm going to see if mine will allow me to share. Is there a tab, show stats, hide yourself, contain video? No, maybe not. I'd have to figure out maybe how to get it to you. It's really cool. It basically, it shows a rodent heart stripped by through digestive enzymes. And then as that rodent's own stem cells are re-injected into it shows the heart literally restructuralize in front of you, like
Oh,
regrow,
wow.
and it shows the power of stem cells. Yeah, it's
Oh my
fascinating.
gosh. I'm gonna try it. Let me see here. I think I can just share my screen from here. We'll figure this out. See, that's the problem with new technology, man. Well, I want to see that at
Mhm.
some point. All right. So let's get into recovery. Um, I need some tips right now because I tell you what, since I've done this 6 weeks or 8 weeks to still fit thing, I'm definitely I'm slower to recover. I can feel it. I wake up every morning with just a good little ache. I mean, I like a little bit of ache, right? But definitely could use some more recovery. And also but I think that we're probably going to go into more than just physical recovery from stress because there's all sorts of stressors that we endure on a day to day basis. So where should we start now that we've had these episodes leading up to, how we can positively stress our bodies? How do we recover from some of that stress in the most effective way, Gus?
That sounds good. And remembering that, and we'll cover some of this in this episode, but what we didn't get into are some of the more popular areas of hormesis, like cold exposure. But I will tell you that I don't consider cold exposure actually a recovery tool. I know people are fond of ice baths and applying ice, and it will reduce swelling. But the truth is that it's not it's not technically going to accelerate healing of the body. In fact, it's a form of stress on the body. It can reduce inflammation and help you feel better, but it can actually blunt the normal adaptive responses you're trying to get to heal an injury or to get a response to exercise. So I do consider it a great hormetic stressor for many purposes, and we could do a whole episode just on how to use cold for weight loss, stress resiliency, and all different reasons, and improving dopamine. But it's not in the category. So what we're going to do is walk through from top to bottom the general strategies that can be used. And what I want to do is make sure we cover the basics, things that everybody can do, including certain therapeutics that they may want to include in the repertoire. And then we'll move into some of the fun biohacking forms that are also highly effective that might require the listener to want to take another step, go a little bit deeper into this, but could be well worth it. So that's okay. I might just start with like a real quick, why do we need to think about recovery, and what are the basics of
I think
that?
that's a perfect place to start. And one thing I know you'll get into, so just so folks know, one of the things that I think that most people that I talk to now that are wearing Aura rings and Whoop straps has to do with recovery, which I think is interesting because the
Mhm.
recovery is something that from a biometric standpoint in particular, we did not talk about, is 3, 4 years ago. It just wasn't, it never got brought up. So again, for the listener, just to kind of bring this home to something, you're like, oh, wait, okay, yeah, I wear a Whoop strap. If you don't wear one, a lot of the people, especially like professional athletes and stuff, Bobby Stroop, who is Patrick Mahomes' strength and agility coach, has been since he was in high school. He's a good friend, and Bobby is a big believer in the Whoop strap. He has Patrick wear one on his bicep when he plays, not so much for monitoring his heart rate and calorie burn and steps. Patrick Mahomes is getting all of the physical fitness he needs, but he wants to see how he's recovered so that he can better train him according to some of that recovery the next day. So recovery, huge, huge, hugely important these days. So just a little bit more of a tee up before you get us rolling, Gus. So with that, all you.
Yeah, and I love the technology. We talked about it last week, heart rate variability. I think it's an incredibly powerful tool. It changed my life when I learned to use some of the deeper metrics of HRV. And for the average person who's never learned to listen to their body, doesn't understand the signals it's sending it, those are phenomenal tools. And for a professional athlete, obviously, whose performance is their paycheck on the field. Um, but once you've retrained your what's called interoception, and you can kind of read your own nervous system, you don't necessarily have to monitor all of that. Your body will tell you, you'll know just by getting a sense of your own resting heart rate, your, sense of awareness, alertness, soreness, and other things when it's time to rest and when it's not. Because I'm such a fan and have been for 7, 8 years obsessing over it. And yet for the last half a year, I haven't even looked at those metrics any longer. And yet pretty much know where my body is and where it stands and when it needs support and when it's good to go. But it's critical because there's all these stressors, and we've talked about a lot of them, both emotional and cognitive stressors, and then physical stressors, and the stressors we volunteer for, like intensive exercise, strength training, CrossFit, and others. All of these are ways of actually creating, some damage to the body in some way, shape, or form. It's minor damage, it's helpful damage, and it creates adaptive responses that can make us more resilient, robust, and healthy over the long haul. And so it's really, really good for us. Yet the body has this entire orchestra of repair systems that go to work to help us recover. Now, the lion's share of that takes place during sleep, which is why we'll briefly touch on sleep. We'll be doing entire episodes on sleep, but we'll briefly touch on sleep because that's your most powerful recovery tool is effective sleep, which I know has improved for you, which might be part of why I've just noticed this countenance on you just looking a little bit different is that you're sleeping
Well,
better.
you know what? So I went from that one day that I was so excited, audience, I was so excited about my sleep score that I shared it with my doctor. And the next day, dude, had like one of the lowest scores ever. I'm kind of trending a little bit back up again, but at least I have here's what's increased a lot, Gus, is my REM sleep has really gone up. But that
Mhm.
deep sleep last night, I think both of them kind of sucked last night. But I had that 180 score and I did, and it went, then it plummeted, but now it's climbing back up. So I actually meant to talk to you about that. I was like, I jinxed myself by showing you that good score.
Well, no, I was happy. It shows you that the body has that
Yeah.
potential again, that it'll get there. And it is a process. It's reclimbing the mountain. And of course, the first thing I would ask about when you say, I feel like I'm not recovering as well, would be your sleep
Yeah.
quality. That's always where I'm going to start. But the body has to repair from these stressors. It has to recover. If it doesn't, it breaks down. We get injured, we get sick. It affects our immune system. It affects our stress axis, our hormonal stress axis. Eventually, it affects our sex hormones, our growth hormone. There's no doubt that recovery is critical. That's why the body has these complex, amazing systems for self-repair and recovery. And it's part of why God knocks us out for anywhere from 7 to 9 hours a night, which is a total act of faith, by the way, to allow yourself to go to sleep because you are totally helpless in deep sleep. You're completely vulnerable. And that's a great blessing for God to just let us check out and let Him run the world for 8 hours, you know? And if we don't honor that, then we will break down. Most of the really uber successful high performers that come to work with me are typically they're athletic, they're highly successful in their professional lives, they're hard chargers, great people. We admire them, but the vast majority of them are undervaluing recovery. The reason is that most people who begin working with me are probably over 50, some might be in the 40s. But what's happened is they haven't done the proper accounting that have, for age. The bottom line is that up until 30, our body is in generally a pretty powerful repair, recover, grow. We have all of our potentials available to us. And then right around 30, many things just start falling off at a pretty steep slope, including available stem cells, which we'll talk about at some point. Like it's just like, and if you go back and look at um, a timetable of lifespans across the continents, what you'll see, I've got a slide that illustrates this that I would be able to show as well, that essentially for as long as we can measure at lifespans, which, we aren't able to really look at 10,000 BC, but it's kind of on there as an estimate. For thousands of years up until the late 1800s, the average lifespan was 30 years old. Now that does, obviously it's skewed by neonatal mortality and things of that sort. So yeah, you had people in your tribe who were living to 50 and maybe even 60. But generally speaking, 30 good years is what we expected to get out of our body, even though it was capable of going much longer, further down the road and staying healthy. And so once you get over 30, if you're not actually prioritizing recovery, almost like double the recovery to the amount of intensity of stress, you're breaking yourself down and you're going to pay a price for it eventually. Now, that doesn't mean you can't maintain a heavier workout schedule and push yourself in life. It means you have to get smart about recovery, right? You have to actually use extra tools. And there's points to also where your body just says, dude, you just got to rest, right? Like you got to give me a break. And, we know from periods of human history and war and famine, we can go a long way down the road under intensive stress and maintain high abilities for performance and resiliency. That's how incredibly well engineered these human systems are. But they're not really designed. There's a price we pay for that at some point. So, when we talked about hormesis, purposely interjecting those stressors into our life in a way that's balanced is awesome because we get the benefits of all that without the beat down and breakdown that follows. So recovery is critical. And for every decade over 30, you've got to spend even more time thinking about recovery if you want to maintain your performance. Those high performers typically come in and we measure hormonal downregulation. They look like beasts, but they actually have low testosterone and low growth hormone. It's just a matter of time until you start seeing the changes in their body because that'll follow a while later. They also have significant nutrient stress going on with the non-available nutrients, and especially in the B vitamins, essential fatty acids. They have evidence of mitochondrial impairment, despite the fact that they're performing at a high level at CrossFit, and they typically have elevations in inflammatory cytokines and oxidative stress. Their motor has been running hot for too long, and we actually have to build a program to, one, really introduce the extra tools we'll talk about today to help their bodies, but two, I have to talk them into more time just in a state of relative rest. Now that might mean nice 7-mile walk in the woods instead of an hour of like beating your body up in a gym or something. So it doesn't mean sitting on a couch. And I get resistance. They really struggle because their brains are entrained to, oh my gosh, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I can relate to that. I doubt you can,
No,
Jason.
no.
And but once they get there and they experience that rebalancing of the nervous system, like we talked about last time, one, they experience a much greater sense of calmness and well-being and contentment. and better control over their mind. Two, that we start seeing that health data fall into place, heart rate variability goes up, and then their performance in gym and in their professional life, et cetera, accelerates, right? They start reaching new potentials, all because now they're actually letting the body fully recover, and then they push in hard again. So it's just critical, this piece. Like most people who start with me, actually, this is what we have to start with, is the recovery part, not the, oh, let's just go ahead and dig into all the performance enhancers. The sick people, we have to restore systems. Already balanced people, we can just kind of move into optimization and enhancement. But the high performers, we actually have to do a whole lot of recovery work, and then we can begin to layer in the next steps. And they're usually shocked when they see the data that demonstrates that's the real
I
state.
remember one of the things that Ben Greenfield, when I first started listening to him, he talked about a lot was back during his natural bodybuilding days, how essentially he would get himself down to something like 3% body fat and he would be jacked, look
Mhm,
beautiful, but had zero libido, no energy,
mhm,
dehydrated, just such stress on his body. And then now that he's gotten older, and I guess Ben is probably like, I think maybe 5 years younger than I am. And
I think he turned 40 in the
oh,
last
okay,
year or
so
2,
he's even
something
more
like
young.
that.
He's even younger than I thought he was,
Yeah.
and he really prioritizes his recovery now, not just from the standpoint of not pushing his body too hard for too long, but it is because we're so much more susceptible to injury, and he's really
Mhm,
interested in, obviously, like all of us should be, living an injury-free life, and that's kinda where I am. I was going through a spell, where I would just crush my goal was to crush 1,000 calories by 6 AM every morning, so I was doing so much cardio, a lot of plyometrics, and just wearing my body down. And I showed you that picture like a few Easters ago where I look like a sick patient, man. I look terrible.
mhm,
And whenever I backed off that and got much more strategic with really being mindful of getting proper recovery and then not pushing myself beyond what was absolutely necessary, because you do get to a point of diminishing returns. It's made a world of difference in how I feel, but both from an achy joints and just kind of strained muscles and just feeling better and looking better standpoint. Now that I really value recovery, it's been a game changer for me.
mhm. Yeah, I'll commonly see this is a common problem that pops up in the over 50 males who are like serious athletes who constantly put performance, especially the endurance ones. They develop chronic atrial fibrillation of the heart. It's really common, and they've got very healthy coronary arteries. They've got healthy pumps, but the stress has created an electrical irritability to the heart. And now they're back in and out of AFib, which increases stroke risk, and they have to take a blood thinner, and sometimes they have to go for ablation. So there's all these ways the body, will eventually crack you if you don't begin to pay attention earlier and really take care of this. So this to me is any of us really over 30, but especially over 40. This is where the money is on living the longer, healthier life. Most of the people I work with, I don't have to give them a lot of motivation to get into the gym or do the other things that they're going to do. But getting them to balance rest. And when I think about it through a spiritual lens, God emphasizes over and over again, rest, rest. I need you to rest. It's in, it's in rest that your deliverance comes, right? It's over and over again. He's not impressed by our strength, right? He's not. He does want us to engage in life. He wants us to test our bodies. He wants us to be ready for the battles of the life that we'll face and to not just be checked out and sitting around. And the Bible's very clear about sloth and laziness and things of that sort. Ultimately, the main problem we have in our society, even among people who aren't healthy, is over demand on their system and not trusting him around that idea of rest. And he creates the most strength and the most power and the most sort of life transformation that impacts others from those who have chosen first to rest in him and to operate, to work out of rest rather than resting from their
Mhm.
work. And so for me, it's just an operative spiritual principle. It's a truth that just that I know from what I've observed in human systems and all the good work I get to do. It's just a truth, right? It is absolutely it's a biological truth, I believe, rooted in a spiritual truth.
One of the things that along these lines that really hit home with me, Jim Lair, who is a world famous sports psychologist, he sold his, and he became famous by training tennis professionals, Jim Courier, Pete Sampras, that Monica Seles, I think, was a client, and then now it's gone on to where the Johnson and Johnson Human Performance Center, I think, actually acquired his academy, and he wrote the book, the Power of Intense Focus, I think is what it is, and he is always telling his athletes it's about energy management, not time management. And this is one of the things
Hmm.
he really hones in on. And he talks about how all professional athletes, they have a season of rest. They have an off season. They do not play year round for a reason. And he said, but and to your point, most of us who, like me, that are stay-at-home athletes, I'm an at-home athlete, which,
Hmm.
is someone I'm never gonna compete, but I don't have an off season unless I implement one. It goes year-round, and when you train really hard, if you're not careful, you're never getting that off season, you're not never getting that rest, and so therefore, you never have the power of that intense, restored focus and energy all at once to really perform when you need to. It dilutes and you're achy and you're prone to injury otherwise. And so it's just it was a great kind of wake up for me to realize that not only what we're talking about today being important from the standpoint of longevity and just better recovery, but it also helps with energy management so that when the time comes that you are working out, when you are in deep concentration, we are doing deep work, that you have more energy during those times because you've taken the time to recover appropriately.
And their life is going to throw stuff at us occasionally that requires us to sprint full on, right? In all ways, in all the
Always
ways.
and always.
Yes. Um, and if we don't take advantage of those opportunities God gives us for rest, those periods of life where He says, "Hey, it's okay. You can. Everything's in order," and allow our minds and emotions and spirits and bodies to rest, and we're really going to struggle when we have to sprint in a sustained way. So it all makes sense. Roger Federer, one of his interviews, I remember there, and this was as he was approaching the tail end of the peak of his career, and so he was an older guy compared to the guys he was playing, and he was approaching, I think, the U.S. Open. It may have been Wimbledon, and they were asking him about his evening routines. He's like, "I sleep," and they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" It was 10 hours a night. I try to sleep 10 hours a night at these tournaments. So he understood, right? Like going and working on his stroke, watching performance videos or whatever wasn't going to help him perform better the next day in the tournament. What was going to help him perform better was to go sleep 10 hours because the level of demand he was putting on his body. And frankly, I find the same thing. We shouldn't sleep 10 hours a night throughout our life. Most of us don't require that amount of sleep. There's studies showing it's harmful for us. But when I'm full on and I'm just going to be hard pressed for several weeks, I will go sleep at least 9 a night. And if I end up sleeping 10, so be it. I'll give myself the opportunity. And it really makes it, you feel a whole lot better. I do think if you slept 10 hours every night, unless you have some type of condition that requires that, you're going to eventually develop a lot of fatigue issues and start really struggling because there is a time, as the proverb says, to get out of bed. But and that moves right in. Like, okay, what does this mean then? Let's stop talking about all of this stuff. Let's just move right into how do I recover? And I'm going to start with the basics. And because we cover the basics in so many of these other discussions around nutrition, we're not going to go deep. But Jason, I'll let you stop and ask the questions. But I know that the listeners probably want to hear some of the really cool stuff that they may have heard of or not heard of that can like next level recovery. Always remembering that the next level stuff doesn't work if you haven't tended to the basics, right? Like if you can't neglect the basics of recovery, nutrition and sleep and things of that sort, and then hope that a peptide or an adaptogen is going to bail you out. Like you've got to do the basics, and then the next levels can accelerate recovery and allow you to push in harder and more frequently if you wish to.
Perfect. Let's go.
Yeah. So we've already mentioned it, and we'll just say it one more time. Sleep. Sleep is your number one recovery tool. During sleep at night, your body has a number of processes it wants to accomplish, and it takes you offline to do it. In a general way, what is it doing? Well, one, the brain is detoxing. It's clearing out all the metabolic byproduct and the accumulated stress, and it's resetting the mitochondria and replenishing cell membranes, draining what's called the lymphatic system, and just getting a hard reboot. And that's happening during deep sleep, and then to some extent during REM and for different purposes. So there's that aspect, but also at night, your brain is secreting hormones, especially like growth hormone. Most of your growth hormone is produced at night. What is growth hormone? Well, it's a lot of things, but it is primarily in adults a recovery and repair hormone. It allows tissues, muscles, connective tissue in the body to recover from the stressors of the day and get healthy again. So we've got hormonal responses during sleep. We've got cellular responses that are all designed to help our mind and body recover and take on the next day. So number one is sleep. We'll do entire episodes of sleep. So I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time talking about how to optimize sleep today, but just know that's your number one recovery tool. If you couldn't do anything else that we're talking about, then just get your sleep. Get sufficient restorative sleep. If you're not sure about your sleep, that's where Whoop straps, Garmin watches, and Oura rings come in and are awesome, because you may find out that, and this happens a lot for patients, that they're sleeping 8 hours a night, but they're only getting maybe cumulatively 1 hour of actual restorative sleep, which is the combination of deep and REM sleep. And you should be getting, as a benchmark, at least 3 hours between the two, hour and a half of each, possibly even split. Most of the time it won't be that. The body will favor what it needs. So it might end up being an hour of deep and 2 hours of REM. And sometimes the ratios may be even more skewed. But typically, as a minimum, you want to see about 3 hours total of restorative sleep during your sleeping window. More is better, right? But as we age, we are slower to concentrate those restorative sleep periods, which means we actually need longer in bed to get to that total equivalent that we need. And when we get into the sleep episode, we'll talk about how you can look at that data and know, well, do I need to go to bed earlier? Do I need to stay in bed a little longer? Do I need to support my body with, various botanicals or melatonin or whatever to help it do better? But sleep is number one. You've got to get restorative sleep or you won't recover. I can promise you, if you don't consistently get restorative sleep over time, your body can handle sleep deficits. It's designed to do that, but not sustained over time. You will absolutely break down in every way a human system can break down. So that's step one. But then the next is nutrition, right? Like, what does your body use to rebuild tissues, to repair, to take care of itself? Nutrients, amino acids, essential fatty acids, micronutrients. And we went in detail on an episode on that and on protein. And soon we'll be doing a full fatty acid detail as well, because they're critical. If you're nutrient deficient or insufficient, your body can't repair itself. It's hamstrung. It'll repair the most important processes, but that's what it'll leave it at, And, for oftentimes what people will first notice is skin quality, like fingernail, toenail quality, and hair quality declines, because those are tissues that could get a little sacrificed to detox and gut integrity and cardiac function and brain function and everything else. And so you have to maintain optimal available nutrients. It doesn't mean every day you got to take 1,000 supplements. It means you need to make sure you're pulsing all nutrients into your body at a minimal effective dose over time. And we walked through micronutrients in another episode. I do want to emphasize those essential amino acids as a critical component. And then we'll talk about essential fatty acids another time. Now, B vitamins do get special mention here. Those of us who are really putting high demand on our system need more B vitamins. The whole spectrum, not just B12, not just folate. We need riboflavin, a lot of it typically. We need niacin more than what we're getting in our diet. We need pantothenic acid, and we need amine, and we need biotin. And so I'm a big advocate of everyone taking a good quality B complex. And if you're a hard charger, you might be taking that twice a day. So those are critical. Before I move past sleep and nutrients, anything you want to say about
The
that, Jason?
only thing I want to say is that I learned during our molecule conversation is if you do take a B complex, I suggest taking it during the day and just whatever you do, because niacin, you're probably going to want to take at night. Don't take those together. And if you're taking especially if you're taking if you're not taking the flush free, which the better performer is the one that's not flush, right? So if you take the B complex plus niacin, you might wake up in the middle of the night feeling like you've got a sunburn. That's the only thing I would contribute to the.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. And honestly, for the nicotinic acid, which is the form of niacin you would like to get, you can take higher doses of niacinamide, but it's not as effective, I don't believe. For those of us, unless you're trying to manage a lipid issue or something called lipoprotein A, which would be a special episode where we get into preventative cardiology, you don't need the high dose niacin. Typically, what you want is around 50 milligrams, and it's better if you could dose it multiple times a day, twice a day, 3 times a day. 50 milligrams 2 or 3 times a day will boost NAD more than the expensive supplements touted to boost NAD. because niacin's the base molecule. Plus, it's involved in many other necessary processes. So I do that. I have a separate, my B complex does have a dose of niacin, and then I'll use an extra dose sometime in the afternoon and sometimes in the evening. Those doses you won't flush. You won't notice that.
And just again as a reminder, you can go back and look at our molecule episode. And I think it's the is it the body composition handbook, the one where you go into all of your different molecule stacks?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I remember, folks, I'm going to try my best to put another link. It's a free ebook, no charge to you whatsoever, that Gus put together, where you can. It's called the Body Composition Handbook because it talks about if you're wanting to basically change your body composition, if you're metabolically challenged or whatever. And along with that, if you decide to do some extreme calorie cutting as part of that, then Gus goes into the supplementation to help make sure that you do not go into, if you're going to go into a calorie deficit, you don't want to go into a nutrition deficit at the same time. Your body still needs those nutrients. And so it goes in depth into the molecules to help you support you during that body composition transition. So a lot of the molecules that we're talking about right now, you can get a free book on how to apply those, and also just so that you have a kind of a catalog of them and what they do. So just I'll try this.
Yeah, and and honestly, what we recommend in that stack is kind of like a base stack
Exactly.
for everybody. It's just the dosing is higher if you're going to use it as a food substitute while you're trying to lose body fat. But otherwise, it's really a base stack for everybody because again, unless caveat, you're a regenerative farmer or part of a regenerative farming community and you know the soil the food's been grown, your food's just not going to provide you with these nutrients. And so you got to go ahead and take care of that yourself and then try to eat good quality food for the calories and maybe some of the extra protein you need. So, yeah, that is a great stack. And just in the future, of course, we're working right now on our Authentic Health web store that make it easy because I know it can be hard to look at 6 or 7 different things and order them all and try to follow links and stuff. So we're going to create bundled stacks of these types of things. We'll have a recovery stack based on this episode, and you'll be able to just click that whole stack and order it, and we're going to make it easy for you. And hopefully that'll be coming early in 2024.
Yeah, and just so we haven't really talked that much about, you guys have heard us kind of dance around this authentic health and supplementation. Yes, we are opening an online store, and the difference will be whenever the only things that we're going to sell, or it's not going to be just like a bodybuilding.com where we open up and we have just a wide array of a bunch of different molecules and supplements that you could go buy. That's not our idea. The idea is to have a complementary store to this podcast and Gus's teaching and his training. It's a way for him to scale what he does in Asheville, which is if you go to see him for precision medicine and he puts you on a supplementation stack and protocol for you and your unique needs, you get that at the store. We want you to listen to this podcast and be able to go click a button and there you've got the stack and you know that you're taking it. And the better part of it is, or I think the really added benefit is that you can listen to these episodes and you'll understand the why behind what you're taking, which I think is absolutely so critical. You can literally listen to Dr. Gus talk to you about the supplement stack, the supplements you're going to be taking, and you'll know why you're taking, as opposed to a fitness influencer that looks great, looks amazing, that works out all day, does nothing but be fit for a living, and then tell you, here, take my supplement, and you have no idea why you're taking it. That's not what we're here for. We want to be able to have a complementary business to what we're teaching on these on the podcast. So yeah, be looking for that. We're really excited about it, and I'm glad you mentioned it, Gus.
Yeah, and I just will back up and briefly say it because Jason knows this. This work that I do, I get the privilege of looking into, over the course of my career, tens of thousands of people, and now, hundreds of people looking at these deep data sets, the kinds that we review on this report, and helping them map out their system. And as I do so, what I see is what is probably 90 to 95% of the population going to look like if I collected this data on you? What's it likely to look like based on the cross section of people that I'm seeing? And then it hurts my heart to look around in my community and in the grocery store and to see regular families and know what I'm seeing in these data sets. It's going on in these families and these children, and they're just not aware. And I know, at one, I can't see them all. And two, we don't have enough clinicians trained in this type of understanding yet to see them all. And how can we help them understand it? And that's part of the point of the podcast, is to raise that awareness and teach you. But the idea would be, people spend thousands of dollars on the data and time with me and things of that sort. And I know that that's not what the average person can do. But if we can tell you, hey, this is what we're likely to see in your body if we did these tests. This is probably the issues you're dealing with. And this is exactly how I address it in my clinic. This is what I would do if you're in front of me. Sure, it's not quite as personalized. Maybe we're missing a few percent of things that would have been specific to you, but the body will fix itself once you take care of the 90%. Right. And so, we want you to be empowered with the why, the understanding, the importance of it. And we want you sharing that with your neighbors. It doesn't matter whether it's this podcast or our supplement stacks, whatever, it doesn't matter. We want this truth to go out. It's so critical to the future of us, of Homo sapiens, of our children and their children. And I know that's what God wants us, for us to be healthy and to live these healthy lives that can be more meaningful, because our good health does to some extent inform what we can do, what we can accomplish, and how we can shine his light into this world. So we're really on this mission of authentic health to share the truth, help you understand it. And then for people who can't access the care model, to say, hey, here's how to make it easy just to go ahead and integrate this into your life, and to make it as affordable as we can make it. Because typically what I'm able to do is, through my relationships with the producers of these formulations, and eventually we'll have our own, is to bring that price way down for you. So it's much better than what you'll get. So that's our goal, and it's our mission, and it's critical. And, when we're able to do it, we'll appreciate your support and sharing the message with as many people as
And I
possible.
want to tell you one of the benefits to why, what we're talking about today, which is recovery. So a buddy of mine who's actually going to be on the podcast, he's been on here before, Brian Thompson, former uh, football player, A&M linebacker, just a monster, and now runs the Christus Human Performance Center here in Tyler. He and a couple of guys on his staff sat down with me for an episode, and Brian had a leg injury. I can't remember if he tore his ACL. I can't remember what he did, but he told me, he said, Jason, I will be recovered within 5 weeks. I'll be off these crutches and back walking. And he works hard. He pushes it hard, but he's also very strict about getting proper recovery. And we talked about it when in this conversation that I'll be airing in the next week or so. I said, and I've mentioned this to you, and I think I've said it to you, audience, on an Authentic Health Friday. So much of the reason why I train the way I do right now is for recovery, is so that I have to put in there normal recovery, so that in the instance I'm forced to recover due to injury, car wreck, slip, a fall, or whatever, it happens more efficiently, it happens more effectively. And I'm watching right now, it's kind of like, and you tell me if I'm just, this just sounds good, Gus, but it might not make any sense scientifically. But if my body is conditioned to efficiently recover, or can I train my body to efficiently recover, like I can train my body to, take on more resistance, to take on more stress? It's like anything else. Does the recovery, is that something that I can train for, so that in the instance that I'm in a forced recovery mode, I have to, I have a surgery or something like that, then my body is more effective, as opposed to, what does that limit inflammation, or does it have a positive impact of any kind? Because my body's like, man, we know how to recover. You've taken care of it, so you're going to get out of the woods quicker. Am I thinking about that the right way?
No, yeah, you're 100% right. And that gets back into the whole epigenetic expression. And right, the more that we've been regularly expressing these genes, making these proteins and enzymes, making sure that these processes are catalyzed and online in the human system, the more efficiently they're going to work, the less time it takes to get everything up and running, and the more entrained they are. They know how to do their job. And, and so it's critical that we're entraining this as just a lifestyle. Because, yeah, those of us who do this, and also know about the next level tools that we can use, and we're going to briefly run through those, we can get these remarkable recoveries that are not predictable, like that will blow your orthopedic doctor away. It'd be like, well, this is going to be 12 weeks out of action, and it's going to take this long. You have this much scar tissue and these limitations. And in 6 weeks, they're going, I've never seen anything like this. And I do get those calls from doctors who are treating people for injury and asking me, what did you put them on? And at first, the first few times that happened, I was nervous. I was like, what went wrong? Yeah. And I was like, I thought I'm about to get scolded. I interfered with their process. And no, it was like, no, I've not seen healing at this rate. I've not seen healing that appears as natural as this does, the way things are going back into proper alignment. I want to know about this. And unfortunately, those that I've shared with, they're awesome. They're awesome. They're reaching out, they're curious. But I'm like, well, when are you going to then just make this part of what you do every time you do surgery?
Yep.
Like, and they're too busy to think about it. But it like should be part of it. I mean, that was part of this talk this weekend when we discussed stem cells and what the difference we can make if we activate that system, how quickly we can recover and repair. It's just remarkable. So yeah, you want to do this all the time. And then your micro recoveries, when you're not recovering from something terrible, they're also better. And so you just feel better, more energy, less soreness, more capability, less limitations.
So, all right. So, first one, sleep, top of the ladder on recovery. Nothing compares.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
some nutrient repair. Eat good foods. Supplement
Mm-hmm.
where you need to help enhance recovery. Where do we go next?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then we're going to stay in the vein of what can you do that you don't have to like go out and necessarily spend a lot of money, like what's in your locus of control completely. And that next one is just the active recovery practices that are quite popular, including breath work, as we've already discussed. Integrating breath work to calm the nervous system, relax the body, can accelerate recovery. And in fact, using the Wim Hof style of breathing can raise adrenaline and cortisol and perhaps be part of that too if you're not already stressed. So attending to proper breathing and paying attention to how you're breathing and using purposeful breath work is a great way to accelerate recovery. In fact, you can start it right after your workout by breathing in a specific way, which we'll talk about in the breath work portion itself. And then there you get into forms of exercise that can be intense if you make them intense, but if you're doing it from recovery, you do the gentle forms: yoga, stretching routines, foam rolling, Pilates. These are all ways of stretching muscles and fascia, improving blood flow to those tissues, improving range of motion and health of connective tissue, and will accelerate healing. Now, again, if you're trying to recover from a brutal workout, you don't go do high intensity power yoga. You do the more gentle sequences where you're not short of breath and you're not stressed and hanging on for dear life, where you're working through postures and poses that may feel a little stressful, are ultimately helping your body recover. So this active recovery process of paying attention to your breath, mobilizing your body, stretching, foam rolling, or possibly going to professionals who could help you, good quality kinesiologists, chiropractors who might do full spectrum body work, and massage therapists can all really make a huge difference in how your body repairs itself, especially after intensive exercise. There's a long list of those, but those are just the basics, and you don't have to go like do 15 different versions. Doing a 15 or 20-minute full body stretching, from whether you borrow it from yoga or Pilates or what have you, possibly doing some tissue release with a self massager or a foam roller, and then working on your breath will make a huge difference in your
All
recovery.
right, so I want to ask you about active recovery because it's one of the hardest things for me to do is to just do nothing. I
Mm-hmm.
can't stand it. I've gotten better on Sundays, letting like a 4 or 5 mile walk be my active recovery, but I still want to do something. I want to do a zone 2 ride or something like that. How important is it, and how often does someone? I mean, you kind of know how I train. Is do you recommend active recovery, meaning take it if you're gonna take a day off, don't just sit and just chill, or is that okay if you've done 6 days of pretty intense training? Or do you suggest on that 6th day, 5th day, how whatever works for the individual, of at least going for a walk, maybe doing a little bit of some like you say, some yoga, or is it okay to just kinda just let the whole system just kinda shut down for a day? Or is there what do you recommend on that for?
It's a great question. There are going to be times, and you're going to know it, where, and in a reference to ancestral man, the only thing you would have done was just sit it on a rock and gaze out at the sky, right? Like that was all you're going to do. And then we have those days, and our body tells us, oh, if we have work we have to do, we have work we have to do. But if it's a day where you're off, that's the day to just say, I don't want to, I think you should just sit on a couch all day because that could actually tighten up muscles and things of that sort. So you'd move around some. I think it's perfectly fine to have a day where you just did nothing. You maybe you laid in your bed, you went and sat in a comfortable chair or a hammock or what have you, or a rocking chair, and you just gave yourself permission to expend almost no energy I think personally, at least doing that once a month is really, really
Okay.
good for you, and having it be a real deep type of rest. Now, with the active recovery, that you gauge your body, but I think generally speaking, zone 2 workouts are
Okay.
fine. They're not gonna overstress your body, they're good for your body. I think taking walks in the woods, even if it's a long walk, as long as you feel good, I think that that's fine. And then generally speaking, people aren't gonna do hours of yoga, so your one session might be 20, 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And I do think that even on your complete rest day, just 20 minutes of full body, just gentle stretching is just going to improve blood flow and really help you feel better. So I think those are all ways to do it. And some of the devices like self massagers and tools that you can put your feet on and vibrate your feet and things like that are also great ways to just kind of enhance compression. I think compression is awesome. I'll at some point introduce this full body compression suit to my clinic for patients, which is amazing for mobilizing fluid and lymphatics and recovery and restoration. But even like the compression boots, now this would be something you'd have to buy that a lot of runners use, that you put your feet in and put your legs up and let it just massage the calves and mobilize circulation and lymphatics. Those are other great tools that you could use on those days. Now, we're kind of getting into the tech, which I was going to get into a little bit later. But, these are just ways to modify your active recovery and get an even greater
So
benefit.
I want to, and we can wait till you want to get into the tech, but I wanted to ask you specifically about something that I've started, I guess, about probably this year. I've been pretty consistent with every morning. The first thing I do is go get on my vibration plate and to
Mhm.
start my, I guess, for my lymphatic system. So the reason why I'm doing it. But also, I heard that that's a good thing to do after a workout, as kind of as a, I guess, part of the starting the recovery process. First of all, talk to the folks. Anything you got to say about the vibration plate? Because the main reason I use it is because Jimlyn got it for me. My dad had one, so she thought I needed one, and I had heard that they can be good for you, and it makes sense to me. Just cognitively, okay, yes, for my lymphatic system, I can see how it would be effective. Is that a good idea that I do that ever?
Yes, yeah, it's not just that what you've heard is true. The data, the good scientific data tells us it's
Okay,
good
good.
for us. Now, it's just like everything else we're talking about. You can overdo it. I have a Vibe platform and I do the same thing in the morning, but one, because it just wakes
That's
you up.
great.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's like that vibratory status is just like, whoa. And if you do a little bit of like a vagal, kind of not a
Uh-huh.
chant, but
Exactly.
as you do it, it's really
I
funny
do the
sounding, right? 'Cause
I do the kind of some of the Tibetan rite moves that, Ben Greenfield shows me.
mhm.
I do the Tarzan and kinda do
Yeah.
all the tap on my
Oh, yeah.
cheeks and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yes, it's all good. Then again, I would sometimes do workouts on that vibe where I was doing kettlebell squats and kettlebell swings and different types of lifts and do push-ups with my
Yeah.
hands on it. That's not what we're
Right.
talking about, right? That's just trying to get a different stimulus into your workout and work stabilizing muscles and core muscles and really primarily work your central nervous system. But yeah, Vibe platforms are incredible, awesome for bone density
Okay, good.
stimulus, training, stabilize hermesis, proprioception, circulation, microcirculation, lymphatics. The list goes on and on. That it's a very good stimulus. You don't have to do a ton of it. 5, 10 minutes in the morning or 15 is
Yeah.
great. And it is. It's a nice pick me up as well. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the Vibe platforms. They're not like the first tool I'd buy for recovery if I was just, going to try to limit my budget. But if I had the bandwidth for it, yeah, I'd include
Alright, now
vibration
here's what I wanna
platforms.
add to it, and tell me if you think this is a good little tandem. So, I wanna get a full body Juve light to put in front of the Vibe plate, and that way, every morning, I'm getting 10 minutes of infrared while I'm on the plate. What do you think about
So, I'm not gonna endorse that because then you'll catch up to me, and I have to stay ahead of you in all the different forms of biohacking. Yes, my long tube is plugged in
Okay.
adjacent to the
Yeah.
Vibe so that I can do and what I'll often do sometimes do also is I'll sit down cross-legged on the Vibe while it's still vibing with that photobiomodulation in
Yep.
front of me, and then just do some active breath work. So I'm getting breath, vibration, and photobiomodulation, which we
Yep.
talk about and we'll keep talking about stacking these things
Exactly.
together. So you're not trying, it all of a sudden becomes very easy. In 15 minutes, you've checked breath work, photobiomodulation, vibration, right? Done. And it was all fun. You get off the Vibe, you turn off your light, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Whoa." I
Yeah.
feel good.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not
'Cause I
fatiguing.
think that's gonna be my
Yeah. And so that would, and I did have later on our list
Yep.
photobiomodulation because I think it's a great recovery tool. But before we get there, so we went through sleep, nutrients, active recovery. I'm going to do a special topic, which we'll get back into at another time again, because we could do 45 minutes on just this one topic. But if I'm going to buy one device, okay, and we're going to get into also before we're done, some peptides, adaptogens, and other like really cool things you can use. But before that, we'll stay in the tech space right now. If I'm only going to buy one device for many health purposes that falls into what we think of as biohacking, it is a sauna.
Yeah.
Right? Sauna is an amazing recovery tool, and it's a hormetic stressor. You're actually getting the best of both worlds. Getting this heat and like you're having to work through the exposure to the heat and the sweating and the discomfort. So you're getting this hormetic stressor that the after effect is incredible recovery, right? So you're detoxing when you're in a sauna, which is why you always rinse off after. You don't just, it's pretty gross to do that, but you don't do that, right?
I
You
don't think
do
Jill would
rinse
let me do that.
always. Yeah, always rinse after your sauna. You detox. There's the aspect of heat shock proteins. There's some controversy about how meaningful that is, but it is that potential role by being able to activate those. And then you have an enhancement of growth hormone production and growth hormone receptor sensitivity. The list goes on and on of all the cited clear benefits of sauna, and that heating up of the muscles and fascia. Well, now you got to hydrate and you got to get your minerals, but it's going to accelerate recovery from intensive musculoskeletal work. So sauna is like one of the highest things up on my list. Once you move past what you can just do for yourself and you move into the realm of the devices and technology you'll buy, like the first thing I would say if you're going to go ahead and say, I'm going to do a bigger ticket item, would always be a sauna. We have so much accumulated data around lifespan, health span, and specific health issues that you can address. You can do infrared or dry. Most of the data has been accumulated with dry saunas, but the presumption is that infrared is likely going to give you the same benefits. Some argue more because of the near infrared energy, which is often on like photobiomodulation devices, potentially improving the health of the skin and mitochondrial function. And, in the far infrared can work into fascia and muscles and accelerate recovery there. Of course, newer saunas, probably dry or infrared. You can also go ahead and get built-in photobiomodulation and sound therapy systems, so you can get a lot done in a sauna all together. So that's my first and like go-to right there would be sauna. Minimal effective dose. If you're in a dry sauna, typically temperatures are 180. If you're infrared, minimum of around 140 for at least 20 minutes, 4 times a week if you can. Right? That's minimal effective dose. You can get perhaps more benefit from going a little deeper, a little longer, but there's not a lot of extra benefit there. And then you can get to a point where you're overstressing your body as well.
Can I tell you, I don't remember if you and I talked about it or not, but I don't know what I was doing. I think I just happened to do something lower. I was doing I don't know, scapular pull-ups or something like that. And I mean, one of my rotator cuffs hurt like it had never hurt before. I mean, I couldn't lift it, and I didn't know what had happened. It was the first time I'd really felt pain like that in years, and went over to Josh Tomlin's, and he has a couple of Juve lights, borrowed one of them, and I kept that thing on for like 20 minutes a day for 3 or 4 days, and I had the pain had been there for a while. When I put that heat on it for consistently, Gus, it was dramatic how much quicker I healed. Now, it could have been placebo, I don't know, but it sure seemed to speed up the process for that healing. I mean, and it was bad, dude. I mean, it was hurting me so bad, it was waking me up at night. I couldn't lift my arm up over my head. I went and got that light from Josh, and it made all the difference in the world. And then
It does work.
and then on the sauna, I've never asked you that. I didn't know you felt that strongly about sauna. So I've learned something today along with our audience. That's good. That's good. Do you have one in
Right.
particular that you recommend, or do we have one on the authentic health side?
I mean, there's so many good brands, and I haven't been able to keep
Yeah.
up. I used to just primarily go with Clearlight because it was like a known, but I would encourage the listener to go online, and there are whole articles now written by by people in the space that are experts in sauna, listing the different companies and how much EMF they produce and all this other kind of stuff. And so I don't really, I mean, clear light I trust and always will trust, but Sunlight and Sauna is another good brand. I mean, there's a lot of good
I've
ones.
got I don't have a sauna yet. Jill and I have talked about that. That might be something we wanna add this Christmas. Um, but I do have an infrared blanket that I got from Higher Dose,
Hmm.
which is pretty cool. It's like a little sleeping bag, but I tell you what, that thing does get hot and it'll burn your butt. I mean, it has left marks on my butt before. And you have to really be effective with it. Like I get in with socks on, full PJs, and like a hoodie pulled over my head to and but after about 20 minutes, it's pretty hot. But if you're like me and you really want to stay on a budget and you just want to get kind of something that is not quite as intense as getting a full sauna. I've the higher dose, and it's literally like a sleeping bag with infrared in it, and it's
Hmm.
it
Yeah, no, the sauna
mhm,
blankets, they have all kinds of sauna contraptions now, and all of the sauna. The best sauna is the one that you could
exactly.
afford
There
and
you go.
use,
There you
right?
go.
Period, right? Because the heat therapy is phenomenal for you, and it makes a huge difference in detox, especially. So if you can't like, essentially, I had a friend. He wanted one. They were in a tight budget place. He went on Facebook Marketplace. He found a 5-year-old Clearlight phone booth style one and paid like 500
Wow.
bucks for it. Was it perfect? Did all the seams like fill? No, it couldn't get quite to the higher heats, but it got hot enough. I'm like, and he put it together and he had a sauna and he could use it and he could get that sweat. So there are a lot of ways to get into this without having to buy the $7,000 or $8,000 really cool unit. And so and if it's a sauna blanket, go get the sauna blanket. Those are very
Okay.
affordable.
Alright.
And so that's, like my first go-to when it comes to the tech. Now, my second go-to with the tech is the photobiomodulation because of the many different benefits. And so, yes, it's good for musculoskeletal recovery. Many professional sports teams have full body surround units that their athletes get into for 20 or 30 minutes after a game. And, there's a lot of potential benefits. I like the ones that mix both the narrow spectrum red light bandwidth and also have the near infrared. I think there's a benefit to both. So the near infrared lights look dark because you can't see near infrared, and then you can see the red light therapy. I think it's great to shine it on your face and in your eyes for no more than 15 minutes for the activation of retinal mitochondria. That's good for you. It's good for skin rejuvenation as well, but also full body is great, or areas of injury, right? Or areas where you've overstressed. Typically you don't need more than 20 minutes. And there is some data to suggest that if you go too long with it, it becomes sort of like a pro-oxidant rather than actually helping with active recovery. But I love photobiomodulation devices. I do have the most popular is Juve. I like Juve. They're great. There are a lot of other companies that got into the space. I do have an affiliate link if you want to use it, Jason. Disclosure: it's an affiliate link with Mito
Okay.
Red, which from my perspective, just as effective, if maybe not even more, and their pricing is more favorable for people who are interested in these
Alright.
units. So, yeah, and so those are the typical ones I go to, and I love photobiomodulation. Again, 15, 20 minutes a day if you like. You can also do 15 minutes on one part of the body, then 15 minutes on another part of the body. It's only going to work in the area that you're applying it. And the full body surrounds are very expensive. Big panels are also expensive. So many people might just get the smaller handheld, but then you can set it up and just put, if you got a sore lower back, set it in a position, sit down in front of it, and let it sit there and work on it for a good 20
Okay.
minutes.
Very good. I'll check that out, and I'll try to remember to put that, link in the show notes in case somebody wants
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. And then the other piece of tech for body repair, which I think there's a lot of great data on, but you've really got to know what you're getting into. These things can be expensive. There's a lot of poor quality products on the marketplace, but the PEMF, pulsed
Mhm.
electromagnetic fields. And a lot of the athletes or people who are in the biohacking space who did have like serious disruptive injuries who self repair very quickly use very powerful PEMF fields in those sites of injury. And there's a lot of potential benefits. It's getting into a much deeper level of biohacking. Even many biohackers don't understand pulse electromagnetic fields. The good quality devices are expensive, and there's a lot of finesse to learning how to apply and use it and use the frequencies. So it's beyond the scope of this episode for us to like go in. Maybe we'll do one episode on just PEMF at some point, but I'm going to push it further down because that's not where I'm going to go. Like, that's really good for an athlete to have who needs to like recover from an injury very quickly so they can get back into high performance. But the vast majority of listeners are probably not going to go through the time and trouble for needing to become proficient with PEMF. or make that investment. But I do put it on the list because it's a great
Is
recovery
it
tool.
just kinda like, hyper grounding? Is that what you're doing? What's
No,
going on?
it's very different. You're using a very strong electromagnetic field at a specific frequency rate that's being applied close to an area of tissue or injury that you're biomodulating through that electromagnetic field.
Okay, okay. Huh. I was
Yeah,
just
no,
talking to
it's
somebody last night about it, and to be honest with you, I've never looked into it, I've never used it, just probably because 'cause I've never needed to. I need to learn
mhm.
more about it.
I have a device that I think is the best for the most of like
Mhm.
affordable that is very powerful. There's a guy who creates a lot of YouTube videos and he makes these devices. They're not like as user friendly. You've got to learn how to apply them and use them. But when you watch his educational videos, it's very in depth. He's got a physics background, but you understand what the real deal is, and you also understand why you can get ripped off really easily in the PMF
'Kay.
space. And but his devices are really cool, um, and they do work. I have one, and it's called Micropulse. And if my son has an injury with basketball or something, I put those leads on him, and I run that at field for him. He goes up to do his homework and sits with that thing on for a
Okay.
couple of hours.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah, they're very powerful. The PMF tables like Pulse Centers make that are $25,000-$30,000 units with these rings. Oh my gosh, what you can do to your body! They generate a field that is so powerful. Depending where you put it, you can literally feel your body being thumped like you're actually being physically
Wow.
manipulated through it.
Alright,
Yeah,
but that okay, so that's kinda moving further down the list, then what do we got?
yeah. And then the next one we'll just briefly just mention because it's like the cat's meow, and it also costs a fortune unless you've got a place in town you can get it. But hyperbaric
Yes, and
chambers.
that's I
Hyper
wanna hear all about hyperbaric chambers, people ask me about them, and I've never been in one, but yes, let's give us the scoop.
Well, hyperbaric oxygen is simply a way of hyper concentrating oxygen and delivering it into tissues. And you could think almost that could be bad, and in some sense you could overdo it because of the oxidant effect of oxygen. Oxygen is an oxidant, but ultimately the data trials regarding longevity, anti-aging, but especially brain injuries and brain recovery are just remarkable. And there are a lot of really good protocols that we don't have randomized controlled trials on this, but for accelerated tendon and ligament healing and joint healing that are really, really good. And then there's sort of a general maintenance. But when you get into a hyperbaric chamber, essentially the most expensive hard shell chambers that you can get into that might be at a very high end physiatry office or something like that. What they do is they actually concentrate the oxygen in the pressure environment. But most of the ones that a consumer could afford or often would be in a strip mall hyperbaric chamber place, what they do is they increase the pressure in the chamber, but you actually wear a nasal cannula and they have oxygen compressors that are delivering the oxygen. The end result of it is that you overcome the body's limitation on how much oxygen it can perfuse into
Okay.
tissue by hyperconcentrating, and you do get this remarkable response. And people typically, one of my the guy I used to work out with all the time, and I'll return to those workouts with him at some point. And he's one of my closest friends. He has a beautiful farm out in an area called Fairview. He raises awesome, super healthy cattle. And he's a great guy, very fit. He actually has like one of the $100,000 hard shell units, and I can get in anytime I want. Just have to drive over there. And I did get in it when I had the Delta variant of COVID and right after. And occasionally I do take advantage of the offer and get in. You clearly feel like your just energy levels, everything are just at a very different level. It's a notable improvement and your just overall sense of well-being when you get out of those chambers.
So, that's one more thing I guess I need to add to the farm
Yes, you'll want to get you don't want to get, I'm not downing them. If that's all you can do, it's all you can do, just like with a sauna. But the soft shell, they can only get to, 1.4 atmospheres of pressure. I wouldn't bother with those investments unless that's what you got to have one. I'd save up and get the hard shell that you can easier to get in and out of and that you can really get to those higher atmospheric pressures because that's where a lot of
Well,
PVs
let me
take
just I'm
place.
going to because I don't want somebody coming over to my house, making fun of my hyperbaric chamber, going, "Oh, look at
Yep.
you. That's the best you can do."
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and we haven't comprehensively covered all the tech. I mean, there are, like, a combination, a lot of people are familiar with this thing called a beamer right now, which is a PEMF blanket that you can lay on that has, like, infrared
Yeah.
combined with PEMF. But I have to say that, I can't speak to what I don't know. I couldn't find the specs. I'm sure they'll post them, and I couldn't tell if the PEMF was really powerful enough. A lot of these PEMF devices just don't create power to truly penetrate and biomodulate our human systems. And so you can kind of get ripped off there. But there are very powerful, typically, and depending on the company and how much you're spending. I mean, for enough power with a PMF, whether it's in a mat or whether it's in leads that you buy, you're going to be in the thousands of dollars to get an effective system. So there are a lot of other technological devices that could be used for these recovery, but these are the big hitters. I know others people are like, why didn't you talk about this or that or the other? Because we could go on forever. But I would start with, after the basics, I would start with sauna and maybe some of the self-massaging and tissue release
I was
devices.
real
And
quick,
then I'd
Gus, I
move
was
to,
gonna ask you about that. So if you got the time and the money, what do you think about going for a full body massage? I hate going to get massaged. I can't stand them. I don't like them, but I know a lot of people do. Is it good? Should people be doing them once a month? I
oh,
mean, okay.
yeah, absolutely. If you can afford as part of your like recovery budget to just do what we call body work with a really massage therapist that learns your body, who can, some of them are even cross-trained in chiropractic, so they can do subtle like alignment manipulations. That'd be the best thing for you, especially the hard charging athlete. Once a week, full body work
Yeah.
sessions. For the recreational athlete, maybe twice a month or once a month body work sessions. It's amazing what'll happen.
Alright, so I guess I should be doing it, but I don't like it. When I put my head in
Yeah.
that hole and all this snot just
Yeah.
comes running down, I mean, it's just like I'm drowning. It's like I'm being
Well, we got to figure out your nasal running
bad,
thing and
dude.
make sure that that gets
Think I
resolved.
need a nurse.
Yeah. So I am going to talk about one more piece of tech, but it's really more about nervous system recovery, and I love it. And it is one of my favorite pieces of tech, and it's got the data to back it up. Now, there are a lot of other pieces of tech in this space, and many of them are probably going to be really good. And so I'm not saying that this is the only one, but this is my go-to. This is the one that I know has the data and that it works. And it's a nervous system recovery system called NuCalm, Nucalm, www.nucalm.com. And I have a good relationship with the company. I know the chief science officer. He and I periodically have phone conversations. But I don't have affiliate links. I don't make any money if you use their devices. But I do like to promote it because they have really just gone out and done the hard work of establishing it and getting the science and improving the devices and really creating something meaningful for consumers. For those people whose nervous system is overstressed, they're having sleep difficulty, they can't seem to calm down their mind, they can't, they have the kind of data to know they're sympathetic nervous system dominant, like we discussed before. This new calm device, when used consistently in the recovery modes, can help you rebalance your nervous system at 3 or 4 times the rate of just trying to do it yourself through the usual practices. It can deepen deep sleep. It can help mimic deep sleep during short power nap sessions. I love it. I do have it. I use it, especially during times of travel or periods where I just didn't get the sleep I wanted. I do the 20-minute power nap. It is an awesome refresher. I am a big fan of NuCalm, and the data is there, and it can make a huge difference in rebalancing that nervous system and getting back into a healthy state.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. Oh, and you'd also love their performance mode. So they've done all kinds of, work with their various tracks that they use in combination with their the disc that you put on that activate the nervous system in various ways. But they have their focus tracks now. They have their Ignite, which just pushes dopamine up and really gets you in go zone. So you can use it in a lot of ways. But my primary focus for people to think about it is the recovery and the improvement in the balance of the nervous system and the helping of the stress axis to get back into a healthy
Very
place.
cool. So it's like just a special mask with an app, headphones. I'm looking at the kind of the delivery.
Yeah, and the mask is just to mute out sensory
So
stimulus. Same thing with the headphones, what you're listening to their tracks. I think it would take too long for me to explain the
okay,
tech and how
okay.
it works right now, Jason, because then we couldn't get into the things that most of your listeners could actually do
Yep.
today. Whereas most of them probably aren't going to go buy Newcom, but most of them, if they had the money to do it, should buy Newcom.
Okay, very good. Well, maybe you'll hook me up with some of the leadership there, and we'll get them on to talk about it, and they can give.
Oh, they do it
Oh,
all day
okay.
long.
All right.
They'd
Let's
be
check that
happy
out.
to. Yeah, they're very
All right.
accessible.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
it's a cool. Yeah, yeah. So now let's move into a discussion around some of the additional tools you can use that fall into the therapeutic
Mhm.
category that can really accelerate recovery and make a big difference. And these, to some extent, would be accessible for anybody, and depending on how they want to use them. And I'm going to start with like the real simple basics. We're not going to go deep because we've already covered them. Glutathione and nitric oxide support, critical. We have entire episode on it, so go back and listen to that. But if you are compromised with glutathione and nitric oxide, you're not going to recover the way you should. So make sure you go listen to that episode. And if you think you need that support based on age and health, use the nitric oxide support, the nitrate capsules, use the glutaril spray, and give yourself the benefit of that.
I want to say real quick as a plug for Glutaril that I was out for a little while, ordered some more from you, been taking it consistently, and my skin is looking so much better than what it was whenever I was out of it. It really
Yeah.
it's kind of a miracle sup for me. I just, I'm a big believer.
Yeah. I actually did a A4M webinar, a learning webinar for their physicians. A4M is like the biggest sort of longevity, health optimization, physician certification group in the country. They have these massive, uh, massive, incredible like meetings where all these fun things I'm talking about are all there. And I'll be doing a talk for some of their, I guess, what you'd call their interns in December at their Las Vegas conference on nitric oxide. But Nyan had us do a 1 hour learning webinar around glutathione, and I presented case studies, before and after case studies showing oxidative stress markers and inflammatory markers and glutathione levels. So that was
I got
cool.
that emailed to me. Was it from your clinic?
You probably got it from
Nyan.
Nyan, but we'll
Yeah.
send it. Well, no, I forgot we did it, so I'm going to send it out to our email list as
They
well.
they
But we do a nice dive into
why
it.
don't you know what, either you or I, let's get in touch with Night. How long is it?
Probably about 45
Oh
minutes to an
god, we
hour.
should release that as an episode. It's like
We
let's
can
just get
definitely do that. He would love. No, he would love for you to
okay,
release that as an
okay,
episode.
don't let me forget. Let's get
I won't
that
let
would
you
be
forget. Oh, excuse me. I'm
that would
remember
be
now.
awesome because, I'm telling you, that's glutathione is one of those things that of all the things I've added to my supplementation over the last year or so, I think that's probably been the one that I see now why whenever I talked to Nia for the first time, he said Tony Robbins will not travel without his glutathione.
Yeah.
He won't with it.
Guess what? Guess what? I carried to Fort Worth in my
I
little dot
guarantee
bag.
you had some glutarol in there, baby.
I
Yep.
had glutaril and I used it each day.
Okay.
Yes. So anyway, yeah. So obviously, nitric oxide, glutathione, amino acids, essential fatty acids, all the B vitamins, all these things we've already talked about. Now, a couple of extra of those that you could throw in are that are really great for gut and for recovery and for the immune system include colostrum. Colostrum's quite popular. There's a company right now that's just blanketing the internet, but they have a good product. And colostrum sounds weird, but good bovine or goat colostrum taken over time can help heal the gut, improve immune system function, and improve the recovery of the body because of the various peptides and growth factors and uh, immunoglobulins that are contained in colostrum. There are a lot of good brands you can find on Amazon. Ancestral Supplements makes a good capsule brand that we keep here at the office. But throwing a little bit of colostrum into your morning smoothie is a great recovery tool.
Okay. All right. I always and I guess so I need that in addition to my collagen though, right?
Yeah, I like the
Yeah.
blend of essential
Okay.
aminos, or if you're doing like a whey protein for complete
Okay.
protein, collagen and colostrum. I think that is a super fly daily support my body
Okay.
regimen. Whether it's, again, you could do whey if you're just trying to do more complete
Mhm.
protein and then do aminos at another time, but colostrum, collagen, and essential aminos, just beautiful, beautiful,
Okay.
beautiful.
Very good. Very good.
All right. Then I'm going to bring up magnesium. A lot of people who are sweating a lot, getting into the sauna, or they're putting their nervous system through a lot of stress, or they're putting their body through a lot of stress with their physical regimens, would benefit from additional magnesium. And you can get that in the form of many forms: magnesium malate, magnesium taurate, magnesium succinate, magnesium threonate, magnesium glycinate. Generally, when we're using it for nervous system stress, we choose the glycinate or the threonate forms. I like the thorn powder, magnesium bisglycinate, and you can mix that in with some water. You could do it morning and evening. I know, Jason, you do this, but you could also just do it in the evening to accelerate recovery. I am a big fan of, if you're pushing yourself hard, add some extra
Okay.
magnesium.
All right. Yep. I'm dialed in on that one for
All
sure.
right. All right. And then we're gonna go through three special heavy hitters that I love and personally use and think make a huge difference, not just on recovery, but can supercharge performance and protect your brain and your heart long term against chronic diseases. And then we'll also briefly run through some adaptogens that I think are great as well. But the three heavy hitters, the first I'll start with is ketone esters,
Mm.
right? So I like the Ketonate product. I do have a relationship with them. Ketonate, ketone esters are remarkable recovery tools. I know that people would think, oh, well, isn't that what you do if you want to be on a ketogenic diet or you're trying to lose weight and all that? Well, maybe, but not really, right? If you're already on a ketogenic diet, you already have ketones, but you can augment your ketone level with these. If you're trying to lose weight, then you want to use your own body's ketones. You put these in, they'll be used in place of your own ketones, at least for a small amount. And that's actually a source of calories in a way. So these are really mainly about improving performance and accelerating recovery. Ketones are a low oxidative stress fuel for the entire body, but especially the brain and heart. You can take a little shot of ketone ester. With Ketonate, it's a 5 milliliter shot, often taking that at bedtime. Jason, I don't know if we've tried this for you yet.
Well,
Have we?
yeah, I have Frank Yosa, the founder of Ketonate, on the podcast not long
Yeah.
after or
Yep.
before the first time I ever talked, and I need to get some more because I was doing it, and yes, I love it. It's great for my sleep. I am, and I completely until you just mentioned it
Yeah.
forgot about that. You're exactly right. I need to add some of that. And Frank wants to come back on the show. I need to get him back on.
Yeah.
And also, that's
Yeah.
real
It's great.
quick.
He's got a
Real
lot more.
quick, I want to just tell the listener out there who is a biohacker who has heard of ketone esters and think, oh my God, but all I hear about, like back in the day when Tim Ferriss first started talking about them, the thing he talked about was how disgusting they taste, how awful they are. They've come a long way. And Frank and his team, what they've developed at Ketonade, some pretty good tasting stuff. It's not something you're gonna crush to quench your thirst. That's not what it's for. But there are some that it tastes. It's great. I like it actually. They've come a long way. Taste
I love
profile.
their
Yeah,
products.
so good.
Yeah, I always travel with a bottle of this K
Yep,
for the
that's
little plastic bottle of the ketone esters. And yeah, a little shot at night. Now it's a very it's brain activating at higher doses. And so individuals who just love it and they do too much at night will find that not that they're stressed or feel bad, but they're just like feel like they could go do all kinds of things at night. So you want to be careful dosing at night, but most people, one dose at night will deepen
yep.
sleep and accelerate recovery. A dose after intensive workouts will accelerate recovery. I love ketone esters. All my patients who ever have any kind of brain injury, a concussion, or we have any concern regarding the development of dementia or neurodegenerative conditions, we always have them on ketone esters, typically dosing it 2 or 3 times a day consistently over time for the neuroprotective effects. So I'm a big fan. I think they're great. They've got the data and it makes sense why they work.
I'm glad you reminded me of that. So I'm going to reach out to Frank. I'm also going to get some more K4. That's
Yeah, I bet Frank will hook you up at no
yeah, yeah,
cost. I bet he will, especially if you're going to have him on the podcast
yep.
again. And you can tell him we gave him a strong plug today. But what I would have you do is actually use the K4 and combine it with the next thing I'm going to talk about, which this gets out there. And when we get into fatty acids, we'll revisit. So, listener, don't worry if you're like, whoa, what's he talking about? But plasmalogens. And plasmalogens are derivatives of fatty acids that play these integral roles in the health of our cell membranes. We get most of them through our mother's milk, and when we're breastfed. If we weren't breastfed, we didn't get that full load of plasmalogens during neurodevelopment. We do create them in our body. We biosynthesize them out of omega-3 fatty acids and choline, but as we age, we don't do that as efficiently. Plus, most people are deficient in choline and essential fatty acids, so they're not making enough of them. And then in high stress states, high inflammation states, high oxidative stress states, we chew them up. And depleted plasmalogens, there's a test that we can do. It's a specialty test where you can measure the levels, but it's virtually always a signal on blood work that will precede. I'm not saying it causes, I'm just saying will precede the human system developing cancer or autoimmune disease or arterial disease or brain atrophy or dementia. You can maintain levels of plasmalogens in your cell membranes, you will greatly reduce the risk of these diseases. And they're performance enhancers. So the one that's derived from omega-3 DHA, he calls it the neuro one, Diane Goodenow, is amazing brain biochemist. You can take those in the morning and they will just turn your brain. They're very activating. Somebody who might have issues with mania or bipolar has to be careful with them because it could be almost problematic. But they're awesome. The glia, which is derived from an omega-9 fatty acid, talk about healing the body, especially in cardiac inflammatory conditions like myocarditis or pericarditis. Oh my gosh, it's just remarkable. And also healing the brain. So glia will deepen sleep and accelerate recovery. And so I have almost all of my patients, depending on where they are in life and the results of their actual test. Most people are depleted, but where they are in life, the results of the test, their genetics, their risk factors for dementia, etc., what conditions they've had, take some dose of these plasmalogen precursors that catalyze the formation of these plasmalogens in your body. It might just be a maintenance dose if they're younger and healthier, 2 of each one a day. For people who are coming in with real brain problems, they already have brain atrophy, we put them on this high dose protocol to try and restore normal brain anatomy and function. So it's truly remarkable. For you, Jason, what I propose right now is a 5 milliliter shot of K4, and you take a healthy dose of prodrome glia, the omega-9 plasmalogen, at night and see what that does for your deep sleep and your
Okay.
recovery. You'll have to get the plasmalogen through me, but I bet you can get Frank to hook you up on the
Yeah.
K4. I can send it to you too, but I have to
Yeah.
pay for
Yeah.
it. So,
No,
yeah.
absolutely. I'll make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love it's not plasmalogens, I want to be clear. The product is a plasmalogen precursor that has been proven to result in an increase in measurable
Okay.
plasmalogens. So they're huge recovery tools, like daily staples in my regimen. I travel with them. I really don't travel with a suitcase full of
Yeah.
supplements, right? So my minimalist list of what I'm going to take, even on an extended trip, is a minimalist list, and it shows what I prioritize. I take the plasmalogens on
It's just an oral
yeah.
delivery?
Yep, oral delivery,
Oh,
small little
okay.
capsules.
All right.
Yeah. And then carbon-60 elixirs. So carbon-60 is a really interesting carbon molecule. It's very safe for human systems. It has powerful antioxidant impact. It's also a binder that can help detox. Carbon-60, when you supersaturate your mitochondrial membranes with it, greatly reduces mitochondrial exhaust, increases mitochondrial efficiency, tamps down inflammatory cytokines, really cleans up system performance. I love them both as performance enhancers as well as recovery tools. I specifically like the formulations we have here at the office where they're not only combined, you not only have the carbon-60 that's super concentrated on a backbone of either olive oil or caprylic acid, but you also have coenzyme Q10, NMN, resveratrol, and proteolytic enzymes in PQQ, commonly used in nootropic formulations and biohacking formulations, mitochondrial formulations. You get all those goodies packed in with carbon-60 in a delivery system that's been proven to deliver it right into the mitochondria. So I'm a big fan of those. And Jason, what we'll need to do is quickly get you the information on the products that we use here in the clinic if people are
And
interested.
kind of now that is to I guess to simulate some of the same effects of that is and that's why you had me start taking like really high quality olive oil, right?
No, no, no. The olive oil is purely the backbone to deliver the carbon-60 and other
Okay.
components. High quality olive oil has all kinds of other good things, but actually, all those good
Yeah.
polyphenols that are bound to the lipids in high quality olive oil have been knocked off in these products so that you can bind
Uh,
all these components in a
okay,
concentrated way.
okay. Got it.
Yeah, this is a whole different ball
Got it.
game. But man, when you talk about what carbon-60 can do within the mitochondrial for cleanup, and again, immediate improvements in mitochondrial efficiency, you can start generating more ATP. Your motor can do more with what it's got immediately, or within a short period of time of loading this stuff into the mitochondrial membranes. It's
Okay.
phenomenal.
Okay. And the older you get, folks, the more you can do to strengthen the performance of your mitochondria. I'm living proof of that. You can it's a game changer once you start focusing on it to really take it. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's what I learned from you is mitochondrial efficiency. Once I learned some hacks and some tricks to really focus on mitochondrial health, man, I can go so much further
just I can get so much more out of my workouts, just my day, just more energy, everything, so much more
Mhm.
efficient. It's a game changer.
Oh, yeah.
So,
It's great. So lastly, and I know this has been long and we've given you a lot of information, but this last one though, is typically accessible to the usual consumer. They can go buy these at Whole Foods or at a local health food store or order them on Amazon. But using botanical adaptogens, right? So botanical adaptogens are natural compounds. They're very safe and they really help the stress response system. Essentially, they work by affecting certain body tissues and organs to reduce stress and fatigue, and they restore balance. Now, in some ways, they work actually as almost enhancers of stress, but the end result is an enhancement in the stress response system. So, when used properly, they're really healthy. I don't think you should take them all the time. Many supplement companies sell formulations for stress that they tell you to take every day that have high doses of these adaptogens. And I don't think that that's a great idea. But pulsing them in or using them periodically during periods of higher stress, I think is a great idea. And, these have, been studied and shown to potentially improve the ability for the adrenal glands to maintain normal cortisol levels, also potentially improving sleep quality, reducing inflammation and pain, improving overall energy levels, and helping to rebalance the nervous system. So there are a lot of potential reasons to add them in. Regarding men who have low testosterone, who don't want to go on testosterone, the specific, my favorite adaptogen, ashwagandha, has actually got some really good quality data showing improvements in baseline testosterone levels in people who use it. So it's a really like great thing to add into your regimen over time. Now, there are a lot of different known adaptogens, and the list could again become overwhelming. And I don't like it when you buy somebody's stress manager that has just a list of a proprietary blend that doesn't tell you the sourcing and what are the doses of each thing it's putting in there. Typically, those are not great quality. I like to actually buy botanical agents if I'm going to use them for specific reasons for my body. I like to buy them from companies that I know either farm them themselves or source them from organic farms and that have botanists and scientists who actually see to the concentrations and they list those on their ingredients. One of my favorite botanical companies, and there's a lot of good ones. So I'm not, again, saying that there aren't other good ones, but one of my favorite is a local one here in Nashville called Gaia, Gaia. I've visited their farm. I've gone into their scientific area where they have the botanists and herbalists working and their scientists working. They create incredibly good products. So if you're trying to boost your immune system and you're going to get elderberry, Gaia elderberry is just amazing. It's really, really good stuff. Now, when it comes to the adaptogens, there's a big list. Um, I'll name some of those and then I'll tell you the ones that I would specifically go to, primarily because you can really get lost in the number of the different ones. So I love ashwagandha. Okay, ashwagandha. Gaia ashwagandha blends are awesome. And you can take those once or twice a day for a period of a couple of months, back off for a month or two, and then do it again. I mean, it's just such a great adaptogen. Very low side effects other than don't take it if you're pregnant. And also, some people find that it can be irritating to their stomach the way many, any kind of like plant compound could. My, kind of next go-to is rosea. Tons of good medical data behind it. I've had patients who've managed to come out of like moderate depression states with using rhodiola. And so once again, you pulse dose it over time. There are dosing guides online on adaptogen articles where they'll describe how to take it depending on the reason that you're taking it. And then it's considered an adaptogen. It's also a botanical herb that's used for many things: gut healing, joint inflammation, stress response system, and potentially brain health and depression. But turmeric, right? So turmeric is a great herb. Cook with it like the Indians do. Right? You just put a ton of turmeric in your food. Use a lot of the spice, or get good quality turmeric supplements, or get the specific curcuminoids that are derived from turmeric for the pronounced anti-inflammatory effect. So I'm a big fan of turmeric. I also think turmeric is something that you can use basically on a near daily basis if you wish to. So those are kind of like my first three, always go to them. But then there are others that I might keep around. If I want an energy boost, then I'll consider a good quality ginseng, right? And so I keep a really good quality, very expensive brand of ginseng capsules, and I will sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes on days where I just need help, I'll pop a couple of them, and that can really help provide energy. I don't recommend taking it every day. Cordyceps mushroom,
Hmm.
awesome, awesome, especially I think for improving exercise performance. And then the holy basil. It's one of my favorites, especially for physical, mental stress, and possibly improving metabolic rate and metabolism and metabolic function. So I love holy basil, often called tulsi. Now, there's a lot of others that have decent data. Shisandra berry, licorice root. There's one called eleuthero, which is in most nootropic formulations, including like brain health formulations. Goji berry, and then astragalus. And then you can get into the mushrooms that I think are great, adaptogenic mushrooms like shaga, the turkey tail, reishi. Reishi is a phenomenal recovery mushroom, and you got to get the real actual extracts that are actually from real like places that really produce the good stuff, not just the powdered, just bad stuff. And so that's a big list, and I understand that. And I understand that the average listener may be like, what do I do with that? Well, if you're like, well, I could use some help from an adaptogen, start with ashwagandha. Go get some good Gaia ashwagandha, take a capsule in the morning, capsule in the evening, do that for 6 weeks. That's where I would start. If you feel like you got some belly issues and some inflammation, add some turmeric in there. Our friend James Q reps a product on Amazon that's a food-based turmeric that's awesome, amazing. You can ask James if you can get the information on that. I love it because it's actually produced on a farm, and they really derive the turmeric and they put it in a capsule for those of us who aren't likely to cook with a bunch of turmeric and then have to clean up the kitchen after.
Yeah.
So that, and then the last one, rhodiola. Get rhodiola. Rhodiola is great. I like the Pure Encapsulations rhodiola brand. You can buy it on Amazon. It's 100 milligram dose. And I recommend taking 100 milligrams 1 up to 3 times a day for a period of 6 or 8 weeks. If you just stay on it, the effect will plane off, but it's a great, great one. So there's a lot of these. But again, to give you some specific guidance, if you think you need help in this area, my favorites, I've used it in my patients, I measure response, ashwagandha, turmeric for many reasons, and rhodiola.
I started taking the rhodiola at your recommendation. I think I take it usually up once or twice a day on, whenever I'm cycling it.
Mhm.
And then I put Ceylon cinnamon and turmeric in my coffee every morning, and don't really taste the turmeric like you would think you would. It might have a little bit of
Mhm.
spicy to it. And then on since I'm fasting most mornings, I'll put some Four Sigmatic, to get the
Mhm.
mushroom, the lion's mane in there, and that's my elixir that I'll start the day with. Now, and one of the I may have told you about this. I can't remember. Ticino, which is a prebiotic tea. It's a tea with prebiotic. And they have a lot of lion's mane and different mushroom blends. They have a coffee alternative, which is actually it's herbs and teas, and it's really phenomenal. It doesn't taste like coffee to me, but their dark mocha flavor, I'll do that with some of the turmeric and the Ceylon cinnamon, and man,
Mhm.
it makes for a nice little elixir. So that's kind of what I do instead of having coffee in the mornings most of the time.
Yeah, and like there's so many that you could list. Right? There's so many different botanicals that you could play around with. There's a lot of good ones. I stick with the basics that we have data on that I know can work. I don't think any human system ever encountered these on a regular basis prior to industrialization, which is why I always recommend pulse dosing them. I think you're going to get your best benefit from bringing it in for a period of time and then leaving it off for a
Yeah.
period of time. And I think the same thing about mushrooms. I think mushroom blends are great. Lion's mane is awesome. It's a great nootropic, but it also does potentially increase oxidative stress in the brain. And so I'm not going to go to lion's mane every day to get my mental
Right.
boost. Maybe some days it's ginseng, but hopefully if I'm doing what we say in this podcast, the basics, I'm not needing to go get a mental boost
Yeah.
every day. So that leads to the final little bit, and we'll wrap up. But then what's one of the basics I didn't mention, but I meant that is like the critical piece? Stop hurting yourself, right? Like, and I'm not lecturing, I'm not pointing fingers, I'm
Right.
not judging. There's not probably a bad habit out there that I haven't struggled with at some point in my life that I've had to unwind. So I'm very actually empathetic to people who are going through those struggles. But stop overusing stimulants like caffeine, right? Like that's just hurting your system and your recovery. Small amounts used in a targeted way, fine. But don't like rely on caffeine to be awake and alert all day long. Stop consuming lots of alcohol or consuming it frequently. Terrible, terrible toxin for your body. Other drugs, other stimulants, other things that you're using to try and modulate your physiology to survive the day, to go to sleep, sedatives that you're taking that aren't like natural, like stop hurting yourself, right? It's so critical. You won't need to spend so much time on recovery if you just take the things out that are directly harming your body and forcing you to have to recover from them, which the sad thing is typically the typical habit pattern. And I've been there, so I'm not judging it. Again, I am judging it as a bad habit pattern, but I'm not judging the individual engaged in it. Is you're going to wake up with caffeine and then and maybe even sugar, and then you're going to have sugar and caffeine again, and then you're going to have some kind of energy capsule or energy beverage that probably has more caffeine plus a few other things. And then your nervous system is all wound up, and you're going to end up taking possibly medications to sedatives to calm your nervous system down, and then using a bunch of herbal sedatives to try and calm your nervous system down, and maybe a Benadryl to go to sleep at night and try to make it through the night. And then you're going to wake up and do it again, or alcohol like at the end of the day. Like so many people are stuck in that habit pattern, and then they're overexposed to tech. They haven't spent any time outside. Face like the messages they're reading on social media are just enraging them. It's a terrible, terrible way for a human being to exist. We weren't designed to exist that way. It's hard to unwind, but everybody who's taken that journey, and I have, will never put themselves back in that prison again. Never. The door doesn't even open. It doesn't open not because I'm afraid to open it because of what may happen, although I am. It doesn't open because I have no interest in opening that door ever again. No delight, no idea that it would, no nostalgia about it whatsoever, right? Like an absence of desire because of how wonderful and blessed and good I feel now on the other
Yeah,
side.
and I've gone on about that. And I could go on and on about the whole just cutting alcohol completely out of my diet. You're exactly right. Like I was recently, as we talked about, I was recently at my nephew's wedding, and I guarantee you, people probably thought I was the drunkest guy there, and I'd not had a drop of alcohol. One of the best things ever was whenever my sister told Jimlin, "Well, you're going to drive him home, right?" And Jimlin's like, "No, he's driving home. He hasn't had anything to drink." And there was no, even though everyone around me was drinking, um, I had no desire because I felt great, was having a blast just on natural endorphins, flow and dopamine flowing through my body, but also knowing I'm not gonna have a hangover, I'm not gonna be tired. It just if you do this stuff, folks, and you start to implement it into your daily life, again, Gus and I, neither one of us are here to tell you what to do, but we're just both here to say I mean, you can still live an unbelievably healthier, happier, more joyful life without it, and you'll get as addicted as some people are to the highs of whatever drugs and alcohol, whatever is their choice. All the stuff we're talking about can become just as addictive. Just the feeling, the natural
Mhm.
feeling of feeling good. Um, I'm living proof of it, and I just don't think I'm that unique.
Yeah, the euphoria that we often seek through chemical modulation of our body, God
Yeah,
created that euphoria. He put it into the human system. He made it possible for us to achieve those states. The more we try to artificially induce it using our own means, the less euphoria we actually
yep.
experience, right? It just, and so I've seen it over and over again. Obviously, I've treated a lot of people with challenging addictions in my clinic and helped them try to walk out of them. It's really, really hard. It's a terrible prison. I haven't yet met an addict who doesn't, in some way, if they have a moment where they're not on drugs, say, I wish I'd never put myself in this
Yeah,
prison. I mean, I just wish I'd never done it. And it's not, so really what we're not really probably talking to is an audience of people who have like heavy drug addictions, although some may. And if so, good, please get help. Please get help. Um, we're talking about all the micro
yep.
addictions, right? Tech, a little alcohol, a little caffeine, a little this, a little of that, and just like free your body of that stuff and find out what it's like to have natural euphoria, natural dopamine, natural motivation and drive, natural rest and calm and sleep. There isn't a drug that matches it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, brother, this has been another fun one. I think that if people can't listen to this and say that they know at least a little bit of something about proper recovery, I don't know what to do, dude. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to at least know a little bit. Right. And I know there was a lot here, but go back to the basics. right? Take an adaptogen if you need it. Like that, you just start there, right? Really
Yep.
simple.
All right, folks. Dr. Gus, another Authentic Health Friday in the can. Thank you so much, brother. Have a good weekend. Everyone, thanks for listening. And remember, we have an entire series of these, and I have been cataloging these in the Vitruvian letter. So if you have not subscribed and you want to be able to just get all of these Authentic Health Friday episodes in one place, then go out to jasonrightnow.com. Sign up for the Vitruvian letter. It's low cal, no carbs, no alcohol. It's alcohol free. It's politics free. It is the most low fat newsletter you'll ever have. It is guaranteed to not change your life, but it will give you some ideas of how you can change your life if should you decide to. I think you'll enjoy it. And so with that, we're out. Thanks so much for listening. Well, that does it for this episode of The Jason Wright Show. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a Texas Titan Media production. Fourth Wall did the music. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Please consider going out to jasonrightnow.com and signing up for the Vitruvian letter. Also, please go out to iTunes. It takes like 30 seconds to just leave us a 5-star rating. It does wonders for the podcast. I would be so grateful. And with that, until we meet again, go crush it and endeavor to improve always in all ways. I'm out.